2:02, so let's get going. So as I mentioned, please download the app and or sign up for an account on the EddMapS.org website. So you're joining us today for EddMapS Pro training, which is very, very exciting. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. I know that's a conscious choice and it's a very nice day out there. So we're grateful that you're joining us and you won't regret it. That was a good call. So my name is Megan Evans and I am with the Alberta Invasive Species Council. And again, as I mentioned, we're here for EddMapS Pro training. So EddMapS Pro is a smartphone app that was designed for invasive species practitioners to map and monitor their invasive species data. And Chuck Bergeron, who's joining us, is the star of our show today. So he's going to do the bulk of the talking. But before I fully introduce Chuck, I do want to take a moment and recognize Alberta Environment and Parks, and particularly Craig Demare and his team for their support of this program, because without it, we wouldn't be here today. We would not be able to bring this app online in Alberta. So we're really grateful to Alberta Environment and Parks and Craig and his team for that. So big thanks to you folks. So today, a couple of, I guess, administrative things, but this is set up like a meeting and not a webinar. We expect there to be lots and lots of questions, and Chuck is ready for them. So don't hesitate to ask. There's always a couple different ways to ask questions. You can type into the chat box. Oh, and I think we just have a chat box with us today. Yeah, that's correct. So if you move your mouse, you'll see a menu bar come up, and you might have to click on the 3 dots that says more, and then you'll see the chat. And other times it'll just appear on your screen when you move your mouse. So feel free to type them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask. And if you don't see a good time for that, or a good break, just raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature, which I believe is available. I don't see it on mine. Maybe it's not. No. Well, just unmute yourself, because we do invite lots and lots of questions today. So we want to be here to answer your questions. And if you have a question, chances are someone else has the same question. So please don't hesitate to ask questions as we go along, and we'll try to address those questions as we go along. If you're not asking a question though, then I do request that you remain muted, just so that we don't have a lot of noise on and interference kind of coming through. And Cam Loggery is feeling good. I like it. That's great. It's great. I'm excited that we're all here today. So we expect the session to last for about an hour and a half. It's really going to be dependent on how many questions we have. And so it's totally up to you guys how long this will truly take. And the session is being recorded. So we will make the video available to everybody later on for on-demand viewing. We'll post it on our website so that you can take this in and use this as a resource, maybe if you're training staff or if you have questions about how the app works and that sort of thing. So without further ado, I'm so thrilled to be introducing Chuck Bergeron, who's joining us today from Georgia, where it is 4 p.m. and probably really nice weather. And this is Chuck's last thing he has to do before he goes on vacation, you guys. So we're really grateful for that. So Chuck is the director of the University of Georgia's Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. He's been with the university for 21 years. So you've dated yourself in your bio, Chuck, but yeah, so that's a long time, 21 years. And his work is focused on invasive species and information technology. He has a BSc and an MSc in computer science. He's designed websites that have been featured twice in Science magazine and have received over 1.7 billion hits. So Chuck has been he was the one that created the EddMapS app. He's the one that gives us all of our support, and we're so happy to have him here providing this training for us today. So Chuck, take it away. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to make you the host, and then you'll be in. Well, actually, can you share your screen, Chuck? Here, you should be able to now.
Yes. Yeah.
And Chuck is the current president of NASMA, the North American Invasive Species Management Association. That's right, Kelly. Which is a huge honor, yeah, and lots of work. Chuck has lots of free time.
Oh, all right. Well, yes. Thank y'all for tuning in on a Friday afternoon, and I'm glad to be here. And hopefully, it won't be too long before we'll be able to do something like this in person versus having to do it on Zoom. You know, we have been working to get EddMapS implemented in Alberta for a long time now, and I'm really excited about the fact that we have EddMapS Pro up and running, so we can really fully utilize the power that we've got with the new EddMapS tools in Alberta. So I thank Megan, and I'll thank Kelly for his work on EddMapS over these years as well. And I'm just glad that we're at the point, Kelly said over a decade, we're at the point that that, you know, we can launch this, and I think we can do some exciting things with this tool that's really about management and about changing the story that we kind of tell when it comes to an invasive species, particularly invasive plants. So I'm going to give a little bit of an overview, and then I'm going to jump into to EddMapS Pro. Like Megan said, you know, stick a question in the chat, or turn on your mic and ask me a question if you need clarifying on something. So first of all, I've gotten where I really try to focus on what the point of EddMapS is, and that is really to provide this overview of the status of invasive species across North America. But that can't happen at that North American level if the work's not being done at the local level. And when you talk about what it looks like, what a mapping record in EddMapS looks like, it's actually pretty simple. It can be tied down to, you know, these 7 things. What species is there? Who mapped it? Where was it? When did they map it? Why did they map it? How did they map it? And how much of that species was there? So whether we're talking about an invasive plant or feral pigs or anything in between, you know, that's the core pieces of information that need to go along with that record. And once you have that core information, then it's about taking that and making sure that that information gets logged somewhere. If there is some kind of response because it's something new, then it's figuring out, okay, is it something that's new, you know, to a jurisdictional level, to a province, to the country. And then, okay, if it is potentially something new, then, you know, are we sure about the identification? You know, are we sure about the next steps? And then, you know, what kind of response is appropriate? And so, you know, what we've tried to do with EddMapS is encapsulate all of this into something that is as easy to use as possible. So all you have to do as a user is enter that information, get that recorded, and then everything else is kind of handled by the network of people in the background. And then once that data is in the EddMapS system, this is based off a new kind of standard for data, and it's trying to make data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And that's what we're trying to do with EddMapS, is make this where anybody can access it, anybody can use it for whatever they need to use it for. So we started off with EddMapS really to solve 2 problems. One was a better way to aggregate data, and the other was to ease that reporting and routing of reports. And so EddMapS, we think of it as an educational tool. It's an educational resource. And as we go through EddMapS Pro, you know, it's about changing the story that we're telling about the problem. That not only is here what the distribution of this species looks like, but here's what we're doing about it to help eradicate it. And so, you know, there's the EddMapS website. where you can go on and report things through the website. And then those species are then mapped either at the jurisdictional county level or on a point map. You can dive in and find out more information about the species. And then, where we've really had a lot of success in terms of capturing data is using smartphone apps for that data capture. And what we've been working toward is the integration of these, of a lot of the individual apps that we did, like EddMapS Alberta, into one EddMapS app, and then for more advanced users, the EddMapS Pro app. And there's been some good success. The first Asian giant hornet that was reported in the US was reported through one of these apps. And this is a look at the data, the number of records across US and Canada, for all of EddMapS. And so we've got pretty good coverage now throughout of data of where things are. And over the past year, there's been yes, there's some gaps when you start looking at it on the annual basis, but pretty good coverage of where data is coming in. In the past year, there was about 150,000 records that came in through EddMapS, covering 954 different species. And that was made up by about 3,600 different reporters. One thing that's on this that's important, and you'll understand more later, is revisits. There were about 33,000 revisits that were done last year. And that's one of the big features of EddMapS Pro, is that ability to do those revisits. Diving in and looking at Alberta, over the past 5 years, there's been 17,000 records added from about 200 different reporters covering about 100 different species. A lot of data on flowering rush, some negative data on zebra and conger mussels. I think that's primarily negative data. And then some of the other bad actors on this list, looking at the top species. And then where those reports are, well, a lot of this is the more densely populated areas are usually where we see more of the reports coming in. And then some data, both from individuals and I think that's Alberta Ministry of Natural Resources is the one that's cut off, that's the first one on that list. And then, there's been a lot of bulk data coming in, as well as data from the web and from the iPhone and Android platforms. So we're trying to look at this over time to just see where those trends are in terms of how the data is coming in. So bulk uploading is always an option, and I wanted to include that as part of this in terms of a good starting place. If you've got a lot of data that you want to get in to EddMapS so we can start using it as part of EddMapS Pro, then we've fairly automated that process. You go on, you log in the EddMapS. Over here on the side, there is an option for bulk uploads. You choose that. It's going to both give you some procedural documents and an Excel kind of entry template if you need that. And then you choose upload data. You assign it a batch name, you answer a few questions, and you upload the files. And those can be shape files, they can be geodatabases, they can be Excel spreadsheets. That data is then sent to Rebecca Wallace that handles processing of that. And you can go in at any time and kind of see what the status of your data is and where they are on the schedule. And the new survey that this is part of that does a really good job of kind of capturing the key information that's needed. And you also can put kind of a date needed on that that helps with us with prioritizing those. There's some good resources under tools and training on EddMapS for more information about that. And here's just the kind of data dictionary to give you that information. As data is coming into EddMapS, we're doing a lot of QA/QC on that data. And so we get daily emails that kind of give us a status of what's going on. You know, if the downloads are broken because you know there's something going on with the data or something, then we get an email notifying us, hey, how many downloads you know had problems in the last 24 hours. As data comes in, if data is coming in from old apps that have synonyms, then we get that sent to us in a daily email so we can kind of check over that. One of the problems, and there's just not really anything you can do about it, is bad shapes come in from that when they're drawn on the phone by hand. And so we're checking all the geometry, making sure that it's correct, and then have tools for us to go in and correct that data if something overlaps or is a problematic polygon. And so what we've tried to do and use this kind of puzzle piece to explain is, you know, looking at making sure we have the right tool for the right job. And so we see the EddMapS website, we see the EddMapS app is for those casual users who are going to occasionally report things and need information about identifying species and and a little hand-holding through the process. We know that the public's going to, you know, may look at some other options, and they may even report things through iNaturalist, and then we're pulling that data in. We know that researchers want data to download. They want to be able to run models on it, and so we've kind of built those tools. And then for the professionals, and I think that's this audience primarily, you know, there's still the EddMapS app and website, but it's the EddMapS Pro app and then the ISM Track app, I think, are the real tools that will take your experience in terms of being able to do this to the next level in terms of what you're able to do with these tools. And you know, this is the thing that gets lost a lot. You know, we're not just mapping things for the sake of mapping it. The goal is to do something to eradicate these populations of these species. And so being able to track that, being able to monitor that over time is really going back to the goals, that it's not just about putting a point on a map. So let's dive into EddMapS Pro. I'm going to kind of walk through it in this PowerPoint. This PowerPoint or slightly modified version of it is available on the website, or I'll be glad to send you this one if you would like it. Are there any questions? Anybody got anything before I jump into this, just generally about EddMapS?
I don't see anything in the chat box, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Or Kelly had a comment. He said that the bulk data is a really important tool, and it's a huge way to make the Alberta picture clearer with many invasive species. And we can bulk upload municipal weed inspection and control points and polygons, and we don't have to have the landowner information included. And I know that's a concern for a lot of folks. So.
Yeah, and that's for data that needs to be marked as private. We can definitely do that because of because of landowner concerns and those kind of things. So okay, well, to dive into EddMapS Pro, at least from this standpoint, so the point of EddMapS Pro is to give you a tool that you can use in the field, whether or not you have a cellular signal at the time. And it's really, you know, this app was originally built for county weed coordinators in Utah and Montana. They came to us and they said, we need to be able to, take the data with us in the field. We need to be able to modify it. We need to be able to have some background maps in order to see what's going on. And we need to be able to do all this even when we're in the middle of nowhere and don't have good cellular coverage. And so we have worked very closely with these county coordinators, especially in Utah over the last few years, to kind of get the app to where it's at now. And the recording is available. There's a great, I think 45-minute presentation or 30-minute presentation that was done as part of the EddMapS Summit. And instead of me doing it, it was done by the county weed coordinators in a couple of counties in Utah in order to really show how they are using it. And so, as you're doing this, that video is on YouTube. It's available through the tools and training page. And it's just another resource and another perspective on what EddMapS Pro can do. We've also built some filtering tools into those. And I'm sure as you use this, you're going to say, hey, we also need these filtering tools added. But we can talk about that as we go into this some more. So the first thing you need to do before you log into the app on your phone, before you do anything else, is set up two things, and that is set up your My County list. So if you go to the My EddMapS page and you go under EddMapS Pro tools, then there's an option to create the My County list. And so these are not just the counties. These are I think the counties, the national parks, the improvement districts. I can't remember. I'm probably leaving some others out, but we tried to take a map of Alberta, and the cities are in there as separate units. And so you can choose any of those. This drop down on the website now has country. So you choose Canada, then you choose Alberta, and then you have that drop down list where you can add it to the list. And so, if there's multiple ones you're working in, then you can go ahead and add those to this. And this works both for the data sets that you download as well as for the offline map packages that you can download. So that's really the first thing you have to do to get started. The next thing is to, you can also go to my species list over here and click on that. And I'll show you that on the website. But if there are species that you're working on, that is the best way to limit that list that you're doing in the app when you're reporting something new. So that determines what you can report. We have added the Alberta Weed Control Act species as well as the Fisheries Act species as drop downs that you can select, and it'll go ahead and populate those species on your list for you, and then you can remove the ones that you may not be interested in using. So those are signing up for account, setting up your My County list, setting up your species list. Those are the things you do first off when you get started. Then, as Megan mentioned in the email, then you download the app either from the Apple App Store or from the Google Play Store. The app's free. The first thing it's going to ask you for when you open it is for your, it's going to probably ask you for permission to send you push alerts, which you ultimately want to do. We've not sent a push alert through the app, through this app at all yet, but having that okay where if we need to send a push alert for something in the future is there, then is worthwhile. And trust me, you're not going to get bombarded with them. And then the second request, and I think on Android it's all grouped in one privacy thing, is to, permission to use your location. And so you have to have that permission to use your location in order for the app to know where you are as you're using it. So those are, I think, two of the privacy things. I think later, if you go to add a picture from your phone's gallery, then it's going to ask you for permission to access that. But in all those cases, it's only being used for what you need to do in terms of the app. So I've tried to, with this PowerPoint, and like I said, I'm going to pull it up on my phone in a minute, to kind of show you the iPhone and the Android version side by side. So the first thing is logging in with your email address and password. And then, unlike the EddMapS Alberta app, when you first open the app, it's going to take you to a map view. It's going to show you where you currently are, and it's going to give you some options right then and there. The thing that's very obvious is this plus button down here, very quick access to be able to make a new report. So I'm going to go back. There's in this new app, there's two sides, the right and left side, with the the three lines, the hamburger kind of looking thing that I think it gets called sometimes. Let's refer to that as the menu, and then you've got the gear or gears on the other side, and that's the settings. And so as we go through this, some of the options are on the menu side, and some of the options are on the settings side. And I'm mirrored on my video, so if I try to and I don't know my left from right very well, so if I try to go into the left or right thing, then we're all going to get confused. So you got the menu, which is the three lines, and then the gears, which are settings. So if we start with the menu, then you will see your options on the menu. So you've got your map, you've got your photo or image projects, you've got your data sets, which is where the county data sets will be downloaded. Then you have offline maps. You also have map tiles now. So for our purposes, we're going to ignore the offline maps because we're going to be working in the map tiles, and I'll go into that a little bit more as when I pull the app up. You've got the My KML section, or My project sites. I think we've updated that. And then you've got your upload queue and your app settings. So this is where, other than the map, which is kind of the default view, this is where you're going to go and download different pieces of data to the device. And so, looking at data sets, I've got this example of Greene County, Utah. You click on it, you click on the little arrow down, you download it, and it pulls in and shows you, okay, there was this many mapping records, there's this many revisits, and then this is how many you've done in the current year. So you'll get a count both overall and for 2021 there. And the important thing to understand when you're talking about this data package is this is something that you are going to be re-downloading a lot, because every day, if you go add a bunch of species to your county, your area you're working in, then at the end of the day, you want to upload those species into EddMapS, and then you want to re-download the data package the next day. And so that is an important part of the process. So you make sure you upload them from your queue, and then you refresh or re-download the data package, so you get those new points as part of your data package. You can see the points as part of this data package that are your points. And so if something is in fact records that you've taken before they have been verified, before they've been approved and made public through the website, you can see your records as part of this data package. You cannot see other people's records that have not been verified as part of this data package unless you're a verifier. So just something to think about if you and a crew are working on something and you're not a verifier for the area you're working in, then you would not be able to see your staff's points at this point until they've been verified. But you would be able to see your own, and they would be able to see their own. I'm going to skip offline maps because we're switching from offline maps to the map tiles. So it's the same concept as offline maps. We're just doing it in a different format. And so when you choose your counties from the list, they will not show up on the offline maps page, but they will show up on the map tiles page. And these are the packages. They say what the size are with them. Some of them are fairly big and will take a little while to download. So you have to kind of keep playing with your phone to keep it awake while it's downloading. But once you download these offline map tiles, that is something you do once, and that is saved on your device. And that allows you to kind of see. We converted those to the OpenStreetMap grayscale format. And so that allows you to be able to see things like roads overlaid on the Google map, and sort of like this picture you see here. And it'll make more sense when I switch over to the phone view, but it allows you to see those offline map options when you don't have service. And so it at least gives you a little bit of a guide that you can go through in those situations. So I mentioned the reporting new observations, that plus button on the home screen. That's probably a lot of what you're going to be doing to start with. And you can start by using your location. You can start by drawing a polygon. You can start by dropping a point and moving that point if you're not standing exactly where the population is. Or if it's like an animal, then you can start with a photo. And so you can take a picture because, hey, it may be moving. You can start with a picture and then fill out the rest of the form. And Kelly asked what size are the offline map packages. They vary by how big the county is. I think in looking at them, some of the largest ones were about 3 gigabytes. We tried to limit those so we did not have huge files, but because once you get over 2 to 3 gigabytes, then you can start having problems with the downloads finishing and those kind of things. So for the smaller areas, they're 300 to 400 megabytes. So take a look at them. We've created them for every unit within the province, but if you have trouble with them, then reach out and let me know, and we will try to figure out what's going on and recompile them if we need to, just because we can't test all of them. But they all are done in the same format. So once you move to the next step, if you're doing a polygon, then you can draw that either freeform or dropping the vertices, very similar to the way it's been in EddMapS or in EddMapS Alberta. So you can draw the polygon there. You have your species list that pops up, and you can choose something from that list. select it as the species you're interested in, and if you have a long list, you can do a search to speed that up, that this is what you're reporting. And then you have the rest of the form with, things like pictures, whether or not it's a private record, and then the real key, especially for planning things, are, what's the density and what's the spatial area that this is taking up. And as I'm looking at this, I realize we also need to include options for hectares and square meters as part of this as well. We've updated the EddMapS app to do that, but I think we're going to need to probably do it for EddMapS Pro as well. But you also can go ahead, and if you are mapping something at the same time that you're treating it, you can go ahead and mark it as treated, and that gets back to the different colors of points on the map. When something is just positive, it shows up as red. When it has been when the status is treated, it shows up as yellow. When it's eradicated, it shows up as green, and when it was negative, it shows up as blue. And so part of this, and as we talk about revisits, that's kind of what you're trying to do with the revisits, is to show that that change in the records. So you download the data package, all these records show up on your device, and they show up, as you can see here, as a bunch of points. You can click on that point. You can view the basic details of that record. You can report a revisit. You can also get directions to that. So as you go to the next page, if you're trying to, find where that record is, then you can click on the get directions, and it's going to pop up on iPhone and say, hey, do you want to use Google Maps or do you want to use Apple Maps? You choose which one you want to use. It opens that app and puts that location in puts a lat long as that location, and gives you directions best it can to get you to that record. You also can view, if you have service, you can view the entire record, which would give you pictures and everything within EddMapS. Or you can do a revisit. And so what the revisit is, and this is just showing more of those examples of both the directions and the record in the browser, and what that kind of looks like on both platforms. So the really cool thing is the revisits. So what you can do with the revisit is find that point on the map and say, okay, here's where my population was. I'm going back to it. I'm treating it. I'm going to document that work that I've done. The infestation size has shrunk. I'm going to document that. The infestation size has increased. I'm going to document that. And that information is tagged on to the original record. It looks just like a new mapping record in the database, but it's linked to that record. So over time, you have a full record of what was done with that species at that location. And to me, that's where things, really start to get powerful, because you can start looking at change over time, and you can start changing that story from a bunch of red points to a bunch of yellow or green points on the map. So everything we've talked about with new observations as well as revisits all go into the upload queue for you to then select and post to the server. So all of this that we've talked about can be done when you don't have service, and then when you get to an area with service, you can take that and upload it. So a few additional things I want to talk about, one of which is We added something into EddMapS Pro, and it is called photo projects. And photo projects are something we're going to continue to improve on. The web interface is kind of the next thing we're working on. But the big deal with photo projects is that with photo projects, they're separated from the EddMapS records. And this is done on purpose so you can save these pictures on your phone long term. And so the point of the photo projects, you could use it for documenting things like you see here, or more importantly, being able to show a before and after picture. So you set up a photo project and name it. You can even draw an area where, you know, what the project area is that you're looking at. And then you take a picture. And probably for this year, all you need to do is take that first picture and start getting that collection of pictures for the areas you work in. But then next year, when you go back and this example with the fan, you know, to me was one of the best ways to just clearly show this. The next year you go back and you want to take that picture in that same location. So the photo project remembers where that photo point was taken. It helps you get there, you know, using the same things we talked about with the Google Maps and Apple Maps integration. And then it allows you to take the new picture with the old picture kind of transparently displayed in the background. And that's really what this third picture on here with the two fans is showing, is you can see the original picture when you take the new picture. So you can line up that tree, you can line up that mountain and get it as close as you can for the before and after pictures. And the unique thing about this is you can sync it to your device. So these photo points can be, you know, so you're getting the pictures downloaded to your phone. So when you're out in the field, you can do this. On iOS, this is limited to portrait pictures. The iOS camera interface currently does not let us do this overlay in landscape. We figured out that it's a limitation of the camera, and we're like, now wait, this is the same concept as Snapchat filters. If you can do it in Snapchat, you should be able to do it, and we should be able to do it. And so that led to us downloading Snapchat and realizing that on iOS and Snapchat, it's only portrait pictures. So, and somewhere somebody's got some good blackmail pictures of me with some of those stupid Snapchat filters on. So, as we were testing this, but bottom line is, this is a tool to start, you know, if you start taking these pictures this year for your different project sites, then you can have those. So in future years, then you can download them, and you can go on the web and get all these pictures from your My EddMapS account. The final thing, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but we've also added the ability for you to do KML underlays, and so there are some limitations in terms of file size. You cannot take a huge KML and add it to this. Like a 3 megabyte KML file is about all that will work as part of this. But as you can see with this kind of lavender background here, if you want to see where your project site is that you're working in and where that has the, you know, relates to where points are, then you can upload that KML file through the website, sync those on your phone, and then turn them on so you can see them behind those points. So, you know, something that some of you will probably never use and some of you will use a lot. One thing that I will mention is that on those photo points, those can be shared between users. There's a mechanism in there for you to share those and find other EddMapS users to share them with. So something that can work really well, again, if it's you and a crew doing the work and you want your crew to be able to access those pictures as well. And where we will be adding the feature with these KML files, these My Project Site files, so you can share those between other members of your team as well. So all of that, and I know it was a lot, is all the stuff that's under the menu. The other part is what is under the map settings. And so under map settings, this is kind of the live in the field type of things that you do once you get all the device on your phone. That can be changing the map type from different backgrounds for when you do have service. Turning on the offline maps or turning on the map tiles. We've got those as two separate things. The auto follow options. So if you are driving or not driving, let's say if you are riding in a car with someone who is driving and you're using your phone to do this, then you can turn on auto follow and the map will update as you move. And you can lock the map in different directions, either true north or not. And so that's a very good way of it, you will be able to see points as you're going down the road as they show up on the map, and you have to turn that on with the auto follow. Then there is what is displayed on the map. You have the option to display reports or display those photo projects. So if you created those photo projects and you have those on your phone, then you can turn those on instead of the reports. They'll show up, and then you can treat those just like they're a point in EddMapS to be able to jump to them. And then the filtering. When I pulled up one of the counties I tested with, there were a whole bunch of negative zebra mussel records. And so you can go into the filter, you can turn it off where you don't see negative records. And so it allows you to say, okay, I just want to see positive treated records. I don't want to see all those blue zebra mussel records. You also can hide or show different species. Right now, we don't have Alberta in terms of its state ranked species. That's a way that you can filter by a specific list like y'all's Weed Control Act, and that's something we can add if there's a need to be able to just filter by those species. But you also can, when you go to the species filter, it shows you just the filters that are available, just the species that you've downloaded data for, and then you can filter by those species. You also can filter by observation date or revisit date, just as a way, okay, do I want to see what's been done in the last 3 months, or do I want to hide what's been done in the last 3 months? And so that capability is there for you to do those filters. So those are the settings. There's always going to be something else to filter by, and we're always open to different ways that we can improve that. So, let us know if there's some kind of filter you would like to have that you don't currently have. One of the things I will say while we're talking about that is right now, you don't have an option to say, okay, I want to download every leafy spurge record in Alberta. You have to download the packages by the county municipal layer, division boundaries, and then it downloads all the species, and then you use the filters to filter out those. We will be adding, as we continue the development of this, a way where you can go into EddMapS and set up a custom query that is like, I want everything in Alberta of these species, and you'll be able to download that as one package that you can refresh anytime you want to. So it's on the development cycle for us to add that ability where you can do that at the as a custom query, basically that's saved on EddMapS. A few other things, and then I'm going to switch over to showing some of this live. You have the different map types, as you can see here. Different ways to turn on, just slight interface differences between iOS and Android. This is just looking at the filtering. Like I said, you can do show or hide when you're looking at dates, and you also can filter by species, and it shows you a live count of how many records in the database are there. And I think that is the main thing. One thing that we like to include on this is to make sure that, if you want the option to report something that's not in your list, always add that unlisted or unknown option to your species list. And then you've always got the ability to report something that's not there, that's not in your list of things. And then you can go on the web later and make a change for that. I mentioned the training summit that we did in March. Late March, early April. We will probably be repeating that on an annual basis. And then the recordings of those are all available under the tools and training page. There's the EddMapS Summit videos there, and you can choose which one you want, like how to use EddMapS Pro. And that takes you to YouTube, where you can watch those videos. So there's my contact information. I'm going to pause for a second in case you have questions before we kind of switch over to the live view. And I do see one. Is there a way to have my municipal boundary displayed on the map? I'm seeing the neighboring town points on my map as well. Are we able to get our parcel boundaries loaded into the app? We need to know if weeds are on private property, municipal property, provincial property, etc., so we can know who to contact about management. So when you, and I'll show you this in a second, when you download the boundary, when you download the map tiles, that boundary is a lot clearer than it is on the Google map. But we do not currently have a way to show whether or not who the land ownership is for those different within your boundary. Now, a solution to help you with that would be to, if you had that data in a format that you could make as a KML, then you could put those boundaries into the, yes, and Kelly, thanks for clarifying the partial versus the one way to easily do kind of land ownership would be to create those KML files, load those in for your area, and then you could use that as kind of the to kind of show you who the general land ownership is. You probably couldn't load one with all the land ownership in there, all the individual landowners in there, because the size would be too big. Oh, and I did the wrong thing. Sorry about that. So other questions while I get this?
Yeah, and I'll just weigh in, check on that too. I think that the parcel data would be more critical than the landowner information, although I suppose a county could choose to put the landowner information in as well, but that's where you could get into some privacy issues, perhaps. There's no if you did have individual landowner names, for example, that could potentially pull into the EddMapS data, Chuck, or is that not a field that would track over?
In terms of who did the report, or in terms of who, I'm trying to think how you would do it. I mean, how you would load in terms of the background layer and in terms of who owns the property. I mean, if it was reported on there, if it was reported by them on their property, then you would see that with the record you were looking at. But if it was reported by somebody else on property, then you wouldn't have that tie to who the landowner would be. And I think if you tried to do that with the KML files, the file would be too big and you wouldn't be able to do it. Which I know is not, the ideal situation, but I don't know that there's an easy solution, because I also think, at least the ones I've seen, every, you would have to basically we would have to be able to load anything like that. I know some of that in the US is public in terms of who the landowners are, but to get that, we would have to go, jurisdiction by jurisdiction and pull that, if you could even pull that data to put in there. But we can, definitely, we're open to suggestions on ways that this could be more useful. So for photo projects, could one use this for any kind of photo monitoring or just weed monitoring? Yeah, so you could use it for anything. It is, and I'll show it to you in, I'll show it to you. Seems to be, stop this and start back. This is why you do a PowerPoint for most of the things, because, okay. So here's the app. I have downloaded the offline maps for Calgary, and I have downloaded the data for Calgary in this particular case. If I zoom out, if you zoom out, then you can see you get more of you do get kind of the boundaries a little bit better with these offline maps than you do with the map tiles than you do. Okay, than you do with the standard Google map. If I scroll over here, I think I've got this Vulcan County over here, and you can kind of see where those boundaries are a little bit clearer than they are on the Google map, which can be helpful as well. If you scroll in, then you can zoom in as close as Google will let you zoom. At a, I've got the grayscale maps, which are the offline packages, overlaid on top of the Google map, and I currently have cellular coverage. So with cellular coverage, I can zoom as far in as Google will let me zoom on this in terms of seeing where things are. I will lose those offline maps at a certain zoom level because those files just get so big. So this is about as far as you can get with the offline maps, but that still gives you a better idea of where things are. And we found that these packages are small enough that they allow us to get a lot more than if it was the aerial things. But once with Google, you can zoom in farther. And if we change this map type to the satellite map, then you even get a better view of where things are, because you can actually see the satellite imagery there. So if we go over to photo points, a photo point can be anything that that you want it to be in terms of what's there. It is completely separate from the EddMapS records. You go in, you set it up, you give it a name, you know, put notes around it, save it, and then once it's saved, then you can start adding pictures to it. And wrong thing. So photo, that's fine. So you have your overall project, you have your photo points within that photo project, and then you can start, you know, taking pictures. We'll take a picture of my blinds over here. And we'll just call this June 4, save. And so there is that original picture on there. And then when I go to take the next one, then it shows me that in the background so I can use it to line up. If you already have two there, then you can, if you have more than one, it's going to ask you which one to use as the background image for that. So a lot of opportunities with that. And then all of those pictures, if we go over to the website, you can go under EddMapS Pro tools, and it will, photo projects will be there, and you can go in and see those, you know, view the pictures that are associated with them, and download those straight to your device. And like I said, we're continuing to update this interface and have some plans in the next few weeks to make this a little more user-friendly on the website. I mentioned the KMLs. The KMLs now, we've relabeled that as project areas, just to kind of give it a more consistent name across everything that we're doing. And so that is this. Again, there is a limit on what those KML files, how big those KML files can be. If I go back to the map, well, let me just show you. So for data sets here, and looking back at the phone, you can see the Calgary, the Edmonton, and then I think I downloaded Vulcan County as well. So you can see those different reports, how you refresh them, how you delete them, how you can turn them off and on. If you're only working in one area, you can just go ahead and turn that off on the map. And then here's the map tiles. It shows you all the different counties that you have. The Alberta one's 425 megabytes, Edmonton's 580, and Vulcan County was 452. So those I think are around the same size, and are there. Yes, I think that the data sets include all of the national parks, and I'm trying to remember if the provincial parks were part of the shapefile that we used to do it, or if it was just the national ones. the provincial ones would fall into one of the lower, one of the other municipality groups that they would have fallen into. If I'll switch over to that on the web, but on the My County list, you can see, here's what the list looks like in terms of the cities, the counties, as well as some of the improvement districts that are in there. So yes, we can add pretty much anything to this. We were trying to do as the starting point something that would give us coverage to the entire province that and then kind of see, okay, what counties are using it? Is there a way that we can improve it by providing something else? And honestly, where it starts to matter is for the really large spatial large areas, where that would be the main reason why it would be useful to break it down in there. So I'm pretty sure that at least, well, that's interesting. I don't know why it's not. Okay, I'm going to have to go in and look at what is pulling right here, because I know that we created the files for Banff and a few of the other national parks, and they're just not showing up on this list for some reason. But we can fix that, because those, I know there were 4 or 5 that we did add to, that are available. They're just not on this list for some reason. But let me see what else in terms of this. The My Species list is here, and like I said, you can choose the Fishery of the Weed Control Act and populate those. We've also made this where you can assign a priority to it, and you can just pick those up and drag them to reorder them. So they'll show up in the app in alphabetical order, but if they're species that you work on routinely, then you can go in and sort them on this page by just dragging and dropping, and it will show up, it'll show up in that order. So if there's a few that you focus on a lot. So other questions about Pro, and I wanted to give kind of a quick introduction to the ISM track tool as well, that we're not quite ready to launch, but I think you'll see how it kind of fits into the bigger package of this, and how getting your data in EddMapS and having that record in EddMapS is kind of the first step. And then the next step is moving to the to ISM track, where you can track anymore. So is there other questions?
It's Craig DeMar here. I got a question. It's kind of related to that make private button, and to understand that a little bit better. I work for the provincial government, and on a scale, right off the beginning, I see the huge usefulness of this, of being able to aggregate data across our landscape and that end, and also that efficient electronic reporting and stuff right off your first slide, really important things. But I think when you have multiple jurisdictions working in this, the control of their data is very important. And even for me, if I'm working with projects with a municipality, I don't want all their information in the report. It's just the information that they want to provide me that relates to like vacant ground land or public land or that. Is that the purpose of that button, where when they hit the private button or make private button on that data set, it's under that person, under that user's name, control of what they just
So I lost you a little bit at the end there, but when the check make private is checked, then the record does not show up in the public EddMapS website as a point on the map. But it does show up for the verifiers to be able to see more information about where it's located. So if it is something of some sort of regulatory concern, then the verifier can see that part. But then what they can see is not made publicly available on the EddMapS website or through the app. Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, sorry if people, can you hear me better here now?
Say that last part again. I'm sorry.
That did. It's just that private button, then it's in control of the user, right? Of whose username it's under.
So there are two. I guess there's two options there. If I heard you right, there is a way that a user within their profile can make themselves, that there's an option in the user profile where they can set themselves to anonymous reporting. And so if they set themselves to anonymous reporting, then it does not show publicly who the reporter is. So there's two different levels of private. There's private, meaning the coordinates for the report do not show up on the website, but the username would, or the user that reported it would. But then they can turn on anonymous reporting, and that hides who the user that reported it was. Does that answer that? I guess.
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. So there is, we've tried to cover as much of those issues as possible, but with the understanding that, for especially when I think about it for regulatory purposes, there's a need that you have a contact information for the verifiers to be able to say, okay, well, let's, make sure this is what it is, and we can get to it. But that doesn't mean that everybody in the world needs to be able to see it. So it's not available in data downloads. It's not available on the web. Those kind of things. So let me. I am going to stop sharing for 1 second. And I think if I start sharing again, then I can. That's interesting. It won't let me. Okay. Still should work. I'm going to try this and show this video real quick. This is a short introduction to the EddMapsPro software that was put together by Minnesota Department of Ag, and I think it gives a real clear overview. So hopefully y'all can
An
hear
invasive
that.
species is found. An EddMapS mobile app is used to create an observation. This observation is uploaded from the device, where it is added to the EddMapS online database and now publicly available. Observations from EddMapS are added to treatment sites in ISM-Track. Management activities are recorded through ISM-Track, and treatment information is sent back to EddMapS. The observation status changes from positive to treated.
so the Minnesota Department of Ag put that video together as part of what they did for the EddMapS Summit. And to me, it you know, and it's simple and you know, basic 2.5 minutes, gives a really good overview of what the ISM track product is, and what it does is allow you to, everything is focused around sites. And so you create a site for the project that you're working on, you take and you assign EddMapS records to that site, and then you go in and do whatever management activity you're going to do. And, you know, that management activity form allows you to keep up with, you know, basically everything that you would keep up with as you are doing work at a location. You know, when did you start working on it that day? You know, was there mileage that was there, you know, to and from the location? What's the weather look like? You know, wind speed, relative humidity, you know, both AM and PM kind of information. And then if you were using pesticides, then you can go in and say, okay, I'm doing a broadcast treatment. You know, what brand am I using? Put that in along with, you know, how much solution was applied, what the application rate was. And so we've tried to build this to be as comprehensive as possible in terms of what's done, and then also allow you to, I've got to find one that they've got some points in. Find a good one in a second here. We're just going to go with this Casey Lake Park. So here's an example. You've got the project area and you've got it outlined. You can kind of see the white polygon there. There's one population of Oriental bittersweet. This part of that that population, and you know, you're there, and you know, at this point, you know, that's your treatment polygon. That's what you treated for whatever reason. You didn't do a great job staying within the boundaries, but that's what you treated that day. So you can document that, create a polygon for what treatment you did, you know, add that pesticide information to it. And what it's going to do, not only is it going to save this in a way that you can access it later, but it's also, it's also going to change the status of those EddMapS records. Oh, sorry about that. Change the status of those EddMapS records to treated. So the nice thing about this system is, you know, if you want to collect the treatment information and keep up with all that as part of this tool, then you have the ability to, everything stays hidden within the ISM track system, but the stuff that can be public, the status of that infestation automatically updates within EddMapS. So there's a linkage there. We are Not ready to launch this yet for Alberta, but we're working toward getting to that point. Part of the reason why we're not ready to launch it yet is in the video, as you saw, Minnesota and Wisconsin are both using this. And with Minnesota and Wisconsin both using it, they're both using the exact same code, whether it's for the website or for the Android app, or when the iPhone app is completed for the iPhone app. They're using the exact same code, but the data is being stored in different databases. So people in Minnesota do not have access to the folks in Wisconsin data. And when the Alberta system comes online, y'all won't be able to see what's going on in Minnesota, and they won't be able to see what's going on in Alberta. So we've separated them both as the databases and but keeping the code that runs it all in the same format. And the cool thing is all of this you're able to do through the app interface and fill out this management activity, so you can do that in the field. And as we move it, now that Android app's been out for about a year, and as we move it into to the iPhone, we're actually going to be streamlining it a little bit to make it even as a cleaner process as we go forward. And one thing I don't think I mentioned before, but you also, depending on how you set things up, you can indicate, what crew members were there and what hours the individual crew worked at the locations. So a lot of features here, and really a good tool. We started this and built this initially for a company that was doing invasive plant control work, and they have have tens of thousands of records in their system that runs on this. And I'm going to pull up and just kind of give you an overview of, got to pull up another document, but of how much data has been collected by both Minnesota and Wisconsin as part of this tool. And y'all feel free to hit me with other questions while I'm looking this up real quick.
So Chuck, with the interface between EddMapS Pro and ISM, do they have to be running concurrently in the field if you were working with this, or do you pull the information from EddMapS into the ISM interface?
Yeah, so you pull the information into the ISM interface. So we have tried to make it as seamless as possible in the situation, but you also have to remember that we kind of built both of these tools at the same time. And I say that because the folks in Utah are not keeping, and Montana that are using EddMapS Pro tremendously are not currently keeping their pesticide records in ISM track, just because they're not ready to do that yet. And so, and I keep saying pesticide because that's what I think about a lot of it being, but it doesn't have to be chemical treatments. Mechanical treatments can be documented just as well, because you're still documenting, what work was done, how many hours was done, those kind of information. So we've kind of built them at the same time, and as we've improved different ones, one of the changes that we're going to make with the Update.ISM Tracks app, which will be the one y'all will be getting, is integrating the photo point concept into it better. You also kind of think about the, ISM track is more of doing management activities to existing EddMapS points, where EddMapS is more about, creating that data in the long run. We're creating those revisits in EddMapS when you do the work in ISM track. So in some ways, some of the tools with Pro, it kind of eliminates the need for, but both Minnesota and Wisconsin also had a tremendous amount of data in EddMapS when they kind of moved to the ISM track format structure. So just for reference, and I know I'm going to talk in acres because that's the way I have the data out of ISM track. But so Minnesota has done work on 51,000 acres, representing 9,700 hours of work across 1,000 sites from 51 users in ISM track that has been documented. Wisconsin, and that's a lot of the case. In that case, is the state government that's doing it. In Wisconsin, it's a lot of nonprofits doing it. So instead of having 1,000 sites, there's only 100 sites, but they've done 69,000 acres of work, and 12,000 hours of work has been tracked by it from 54 users. So more users, less sites, more work in Wisconsin, where in Minnesota, it's a lot more smaller sites that they've done the work in. So, so the question is, could this be built into EddMapS? And the reason that we are keeping them separate is because we see ISM track as information that's not going to ever be shared with the public. It's kind of this private system to keep up with these records, either internally for your group or whatever. So, when I think about it, EddMapS is, again, that educational tool, this public tool, both to report things, but also to kind of manage your data in. But when you start talking about information like how many hours were worked or how many acres were treated with mechanical control or chemical control, then you're not, that's not something that the general public needs to have access to. So that's why we've kind of drawn that line that you can do revisits and you can put in the notes field information about what the work was done. But if you really want to database what the work was done, then that's where you go to the ISM track structure.
So Chuck, I had a question with regards to, as the rollout of EddMapS Pro goes in and a few counties that are represented here start to use it in the field. Do you have other jurisdictions that are using sort of a user group forum such as Discord or something similar to that, where, they could go back and forth and problem solve and, generate some discussion of what's working for them, solutions to simple problems? Is that something you've done in other jurisdictions?
We have not, but that's a good idea. It's getting everybody to agree on what platform. Sometimes it's the hard part. But I think like Discord is something you can do on the web, right? Even if you don't do it. Yeah, that has been something that we've talked about over a couple of different ways, is how to better serve some of that and have that user interaction. And so so I'm open to suggestions, and if that's something y'all are interested in, then we can definitely set something up, if nothing else, for y'all to use in Alberta, if not beyond that. But I'm sure that the nice thing about it is a couple of counties that really are our testers on EddMapS Pro over the last few years have 20,000 records within their county, about as many as y'all have in the province. And so it made us really stress test some of these tools in terms of what happens when you start loading that much data. But they would be if we could get them using whatever y'all used as well, then that would be another, because they sometimes know better how to use it than, that's why they did the presentation at the summit, because they're the ones in the field using it versus us developing it.
Just a comment, we could, one thing I do want to emphasize is that AISC is here to be a support to everybody who is planning to use it. Although I must say I am also learning with you right now, so we've got a lot of learning to do. But and we can be your conduit to Chuck and his team down there. But we can also set a page up on our website too for EddMapS support and questions, like a bit of a blog type thing, where people can sign up to be notified if there's posts and that sort of thing. That would be helpful. So definitely something we can look into. I think Tristel had a question here too, and maybe you addressed it, Chuck, sorry. But she asked about the ISM track and whether you can download your report after you've drawn your polygon and your spray information. And you can, can't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So yes, there are query tools built into ISM track, and that is something that we're always, we're continuing to build on and improve. So what we need in a lot of cases and how we've gotten to where we've gotten is, okay, you need this information in this format. Let us know that and we'll make it available in that format, and or at least get it on the list. And when enough people ask for it, we'll definitely get it in there. But that the way we've tried to focus this, both for EddMapS and ISM track, is, we're not building a tool just for, if we add a feature for y'all, it's not just for y'all, it's for everybody. And so by doing that kind of community-based development where, okay, y'all come in and you have, this pot of money to do this part, but in doing that, we add this new feature that we didn't have before that's going to help the other folks using it. And so that's how we've tried to do this, both for ISM track and for EddMapS, to really get the most, and we're not just building something for one user group.
So Chuck, in the short term, and glad to hear you're going on holidays after this. That's a good break. But if there are little glitches or things to be added or tweaked within the EddMapS Pro interface, should we be sending those requests to Megan or to yourself or to Rebecca, or is there a best way to forward user concerns or questions or suggestions for little tweaks, like, again, if there's a typo or something in the interface, where's the best place to forward those requests?
Chuck, I would encourage folks to send them to me with the AISC first, and then we'll have certain abilities to make certain changes, and then if we can't sort it out, we'll get in touch with Chuck. How does that sound for a plan, Chuck?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I mean, and I noticed as I was getting ready that, we added country and we didn't change the label on that second one to stay state or province. It just says state. And obviously the national parks are not on the drop down. So, those kind of things are easy fixes that that won't be a problem to take care of. So, we want you to use it, but let us know, because we've tested this stuff pretty well, but always somebody comes in from a different perspective, and it could change something. And so we will be glad to make those changes and keep up on those. But yeah, if you can go to Megan as a first stop, then we can get it. She can help get it to the appropriate person. Well, and we're not launching the ISM track right now. That was just to kind of what's coming, because honestly, you've got to get your data in EddMapS before it becomes a useful part of the puzzle too.
Yeah, and just as a heads up to those in this discussion that maybe haven't followed it as closely as, say, Megan and I have, this is not Chuck and EddMapS's first foray into Canada. Alberta's been around for a while, but Ontario is also using this technology, and there's a national initiative underway now to encourage other provinces in Canada to adopt EddMapS into their provinces. So the Canadian side is a big leap for Chuck and his staff in Georgia because of the differences in the way we measure and legislate and do all these things. So the little Canadian tweaks are part of the process, I think, of getting this better. And I've already seen a lot of improvement in the last few years with that, just from the influence of both Alberta and Ontario in particular. So this thing's constantly getting better and evolving, and Chuck's fortunate to have been the creator and been there from the beginning and have seen how far it's come. Some of you are coming into this fairly new, so be patient. Things get corrected and fixed and tweaked as they go. And I can tell you from working with Chuck as long as I have, it's always about constant improvement, and they've done a great job since way back in the days before we had phone apps for this thing, right, Chuck? So
yeah, I realized sometime over the last year that my passport had expired, and I remember that it was, which means it's been 10 years. So you're right, it has been over a decade, because I had gotten one. I got invited to come speak at one of y'all's meetings, and I had to get an emergency one to be able to go to Canada. So yeah, and that may have been the second time, not the first time. So yeah. Oh, yeah.
So maybe if we're waiting on any other questions to come in, I have a poll I want to launch, if that's okay. So I want to see what your plans are for using EddMapS. So are you planning to use it this year, maybe in future years? Are you unlikely to use it, or just never going to use it? But yeah, we're not gonna, this is anonymous, so it's okay. And we won't hold you to any answers, but I'm just kind of curious as to the level of interest in actually using the app in the future. So I'll just give that a second. And yeah, we haven't had a chance to test it out either. So like, this was all very quick, and I can't believe how quickly Chuck and his team put this together for us. So we started this discussion, I think, in March. And so the fact that we have this app that is live right now that you can download is amazing. And we're also, we'll work, myself and my team will work to work out some of those bugs and work on them with Chuck as well. So. Okay, it looks like most of you have voted, so 83%. If you haven't voted, get your vote in. I'm going to end the polling right now, and we'll share those results. So yeah, so 62% of you might even use it this year, which is super exciting. And 29, almost 30% might use it in future years. So that's really, really great to hear, you guys. Thanks for that. And we're here to work with you to again sort out those bugs and stuff. So let us know if there's anything we can do to be of any help. Awesome. Any other questions or anything else to add, Chuck or Kelly or anyone? I don't know if anyone wants to add just even their experience using the other EddMapS app.
Again, there are other apps and things being used in Alberta right now, and I think the process of having choices, we can make all the applications that are out there better. Having EddMapS Pro come to the table in Alberta, I think will make outfits like MRF and some people. I don't know if Ames is actually still being used in Alberta, but definitely it was a big user for a while. So all these things make our job as invasive species managers easier. I think, the more technology pushes along and then the users give the feedback, I think it improves it for everybody, even if you're not using it actively in your program. So we welcome the feedback and the questions and the suggestions, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't talk about the EddMapS app, but that don't think that you can't use EddMapS just because you're not ready to use Pro. It's about getting that baseline data in, and then as you're doing treatments, as you're doing other things, that's when Pro becomes more useful. And so that's definitely something to think about, is that you or your constituents using the EddMapS app, which as the replacement for EddMapS Alberta is a good starting point as well.
Yeah, and
I
if
know
you're-
I had a question as a verifier, Chuck, that came in just this week. We had a invasive species manager in the city of Calgary reach out to me. I had verified a record from a EddMapS, just the regular app, from an individual user, and it was garlic mustard, and it was the first time garlic mustard had been spotted in the city of Calgary. And so the city, from their part, and this has been my experience so far in Alberta, they're actually really glad to get those records in, any record actually, because it shows the public cares. And then that helps them when they go to their managers asking for resources. They can say, look, the public cares about this issue. They're submitting records, and we're getting notices about it. So the question that the city official had for me is, when a user, an independent user, submits a record and the city treats it, is there a way to mark that record as treated? And my answer to him was, right now, I think that would be, and that's why I always include the submitter with the email that I notify the local authority. Right now, you basically have to reach out to that individual user and ask them to change their record. Is that not correct?
That actually, in EddMapS Pro, you can do revisits to other people's records. So if you did it as a revisit to that record, then it doesn't matter who originally took the record, because you can make that new record that this a revisit that then changes the status to treated.
Okay, so even if it's already submitted, but that has to be done through EddMapS Pro. That can't be done through your regular interface.
You can actually do it on the website too if you're on the record.
and that's what he did, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can do it through the website.
And the verifiers get summary emails of revisits that have been done to records within their jurisdiction. So when revisits come in, there are summary emails that come in that say these revisits have been done. We're not making the revisits be verified at this point because of the add-on work that would cause, but at least if for whatever reason somebody was maliciously doing revisits, then we have a way that the verifiers can see those and go, okay, well, that's, Chuck doing 100 revisits in Calgary and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, there's a way to track that and deal with them if it is, because it's not editing the original record. It's basically adding a new record that's attached to that original record.
So Sebastian just has raised an interesting point here. We talked about the desire we all have to get a clearer picture of the species issue in Alberta. If you're uploading a bunch from a different system, like hundreds or even thousands of data points, those should be bulk uploaded. And what I generally do with those, if it's from a local authority, is I either allow Megan or Chuck to handle it. If it's a small batch, I have verified bulk data, but I don't go through individual records and sort them. I basically take it as, if they're an expert submitting the bulk data, I accept it on the face of that. So individual sites from your bulk data, Sebastian, I don't think anybody's going to second guess you on the species. That's going to be taken as verified already, I guess.
And one thing I did not mention, and I should have, is one of the options we've added is to contest a record. So if you're in the field in EddMapS Pro and you go, well, that's not spotted knapweed, that's yellow star thistle. I'm just throwing words out. But that's not this species, that's that species. Then you can contest the record, and what it does, you say, okay, well, this is not spotted knapweed, it's yellow star thistle. It saves that note, it goes into your upload queue, you submit it, it unverifies that record. And so it shows back up in the verification queue with that note associated with it. So it gives you, as the manager over a jurisdiction, a way to say, no, I looked at that record and it's wrong. And so that we did add that feature that is part of Pro. And so that is something you can do, and it will get kicked back to the verification queue with your note that you assigned to it that, hey, something's wrong. So that was the response to the request of, I want to be able to change a record in the field. Well, let's not change a record in the field. Let's denote it. And then when you get back and look at it, then you can make that change either as the verifier or the verifier can make that change. So that's a good way to kind of cover that request, that when it's your data or when it's somebody else's data, you know, if you want to make a change for something that's already been verified because it was incorrect.
So I guess if there's, I want to throw this out there to the group. So if there's things that we can do to make this easier for you, if there's other training, if there's other specific things materials we can create, or anything we can do to make using the app easier for you, please let us know. Or you can let us know right now. You can unmute yourself and let us know. Type in the chat or send me an email. We're here to help. And Chuck is really great at helping us fix problems. When we have an issue or a problem or something's not working, you know, the way we need it to, Chuck is really good at adapting and helping us fix that. So, so keep that in mind, I guess. Yeah.
And one thing we've talked about, and we meant to do it and we just hadn't after the summit, was, you know, kind of having virtual office hours, and that may be something that we do and get some of the other users on board, you know, some of the folks from Utah and Montana that are using it on board, and just kind of have a user discussion type thing. And that may be something useful to schedule, you know, in a month as y'all start using it and may have questions about different things.
Great idea.
I'm curious if the group here, we all have the ability to do a raise hand thing on the, is that true? Oh, we don't. Okay. I was just curious. I mentioned Discord. I know the MRF Municipal GIS, a lot of the users of that are on a Discord channel basically, and they have different hashtag topics that they discuss for municipal asset management, not just invasive species. But how many of you, I don't know, maybe say something in the chat, just would know what Discord is through gaming or whatever, and might be prepared to have a user group through that interface in Alberta?
You can raise your hand. I'm sorry, I lied. You have
Oh,
to hit
okay,
the reaction
perfect.
button on probably on your bottom menu bar, and you can raise your hand. So there you go. So the question, the question was if we knew what it was, Kelly, is that right?
Discord is the one I was asking specifically about. I have to laugh at Cameron's reaction there, Sebastian, too. So Blake knows what it is. There we go. Olivia knows what it is. Okay, maybe Discord isn't the best choice based on the numbers I'm seeing here, but maybe something, I think a user group would be ideal, whether we can figure it out on virtual office or whatever you're talking about, Chuck, but something where people can, you know, there's little user things that maybe through the training today, somebody missed it or forgets it. I know I will. And if you just have that little support group within your province, you know, that do very similar types of jobs, all the units are the same, all the municipal politics, jurisdictional stuff is the same. I think that's a huge support that would maybe save some time for your staff, Chuck. And I see Megan saying, I'm not going to be the queen bee of that particular hive, but.
Well, and Kelly, what I was talking about is just saying, okay, at 3 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday afternoon, we're going to be on Zoom for an hour to come on for people to ask questions. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking, that, you know, once a month or once every some period of time, you know, you kind of just open up a Zoom channel and say, okay, if people want to talk about things or discuss things, then then here's an opportunity to do it. And I know that that gets hard with different schedules, and it's not, you know, it has to be synchronous versus asynchronous that you can do with something like Discord, but it also does, you know, everybody knows how to use Zoom at this point, and you can actually, you know, share a screen and show something if you need to.
I really love that idea, Chuck. We're gonna hold you to that for sure. So we'll make those happen. Yeah, it's a great idea. Good. Okay. Well, yeah, I know that there's like a few things that we need to look into to make sure all the jurisdictions are loaded into the app and kind of have a look at the species list. We're also, Paige and I discovered that we're missing some photos. So there's a few things. We're working on it, and we are working on it. Yeah, so we'll keep looking into that. If you see anything that's amiss, let me know, and then we can work to get it fixed. And again, if you have any questions or if there's anything we can do to help you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I think you all know how to get a hold of me anyway. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll leave it, Chuck, if you have any last words for us, and if anyone has any last questions.
I'll just say a big thanks to both Chuck and particularly Megan for organizing this training and making this happen in Alberta for somebody that helped put together the Alberta version of EddMapS back in their 2010, 2011 and launched in 2012. This is hugely satisfying to see this come as far as it's come and see so much interest. That's major gratification for this old guy. So thanks to you two very much.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, thanks for your input too, because you have been around. You know EddMapS better than anyone in Alberta, so we appreciate you being here too. So. Okay. All right, folks. I guess if there's nothing else, we can all let Chuck go on his vacation, which is 6 o'clock now in Georgia, 4 o'clock here in Alberta. I hope everyone has this beautiful weather as I'm having in the Crow's Nest Pass. Thank you so much to Chuck for your time and sharing your expertise, and we will be in touch but after vacation. We won't bother you until you're back. And big thanks to everyone for attending here today.